And you can always find us too on your local Super Talk Mississippi radio station. And you can watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to Super Talk TV. And if we've got any fighting okra out there in the good things land, then today is your day, because we've got your president, Delta State President Dr. Ennis, in the house. We've got a great story coming up next, but you got here a little early, Dr. Ennis, and I said, you know what? We're just going to talk a little fighting okra today while we've got the time. So welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And you're new to Mississippi. So what brought you to the great state?
Well, I was working at a university in South Carolina called Coastal Carolina University. It's outside Myrtle Beach, and I was there. I was the provost there, which is the vice president for academic affairs, and I'd been there my whole career and started thinking about next steps. And I heard about the opening at Delta State for the presidency, put my name in the ring, and a few months later they were talking to me about the job. So it was an exciting journey for me and my wife. We moved to Mississippi in the summer of 23, so we've been there about 10 and a half months now.
So you've gone through the summer, so you already know what that's going to be like. You've been through a winter. How are you liking spring?
It's been everything. We started off with a snowstorm and an ice storm, which everybody told me was unusual, but it shut us down for about a week as we cleared the roads up in the Delta. And then, we had rain, we've had wind, we've had sun, we've had everything. So I like to feel like when we get around to summer, I will have had all 4 seasons plus about 8 bonus seasons here in Mississippi.
And you may have them all again before the end of the summer. You never know.
Absolutely.
So coming to the fighting okra, what was your preconceived notions of the Mississippi Delta, and then what have you been pleasantly surprised by?
So I had never set foot in the Delta prior to my interest in the job, so I had to sneak out here and look around a little bit. I knew a lot about the music, and I was an English professor by training, so of course I knew a lot about Mississippi's amazing literary heritage. I was so excited, to come out to a place that had produced so many amazing writers that I had read and studied for years. So that was good. I knew that about it. I will say that I was blown away by the community, and a lot of the South talks about hospitality, and a lot of the South, including South Carolina, takes pride in being a hospitable place. But, the whole town of not just Cleveland, Mississippi, although that's where we live, but all the surrounding towns and communities throughout the Delta were just so amazing and welcoming to my wife Jennifer and I. So we've been bought in and made part of the family, the larger family, and that was not what I expected. I knew we'd get some community support and some interest, but I can't go 10 feet without someone telling me they went to Delta State, or their child went to Delta State, or their uncle went to Delta State, or they love Delta State, and it makes my life so pleasant to walk around wearing the Delta State green.
And which your shoes are even green, which folks can't see that on Super Talk TV, but you've been here in Jackson, obviously, up at the legislature doing that kind of thing. And I looked down, I was like, he's even wearing green shoes. I totally appreciate that. But it had to be interesting to come in as a fighting okra. Were you interested to find out the background of why the school had an okra as a mascot?
That was one of the few things that was on my radar about Delta State. I've been in public higher education in the South my whole career, and I studied other schools and been to conferences at other schools, but I recalled the Super Bowl commercial where, if you all recall, the fighting okra were featured in an ESPN commercial during, right there on TV, national TV. So, I had in my head that unusual mascot, and then once it got out that I was coming here, a lot of people made connections for me. So, the fighting okra is a wonderful thing. Our alums celebrate it, and the Statesman, our traditional old line mascot. We're blessed to have 2 mascots, and they both have a lot to do with the character of the institution. So we're glad to put them out there as our symbols.
I feel like most listening to Good Things has heard of Delta State,
Sure.
Obviously, but I feel like we all lean to where where our allies go in terms of Mississippi State, Ole Miss. So you may miss, or for me, Southern Miss, but I do have Delta State ties, friends and family. You may miss some of the good things that are unique to Delta State. Like I know it's the only Mississippi university with a commercial aviation school. I think that's super cool. What are some of those other nuggets that you just wish more people knew about Delta State?
So it's extraordinarily aligned to Mississippi's needs and the Delta's needs in particular. So the aviation program, that supplies pilots not just to national, international needs like Delta and UPS and FedEx and people like that, but a lot of agricultural aviation pilots are connected with our program, and so that means the food that you eat right here in the Delta, if it needed some agricultural aviation support for fertilizer or something, those pilots might have passed through Delta State in one way or the other, either for their degree or for certification and special training in agricultural aviation. And I've been told not to call it crop dusters, but that's what many of lay people might call it, especially people like me who don't understand the technical jargon around that
What
industry.
is the technical jargon?
Well, agricultural aviation is the proper term.
I would have never known what you meant.
Well, now you know, and now your readers know.
So your crop dusters out there, do not take offense to Dr. Ennis. Completely throw that back on me, because I'd have been like, what is that? But crop duster, yeah, I totally get that.
I think plenty of those crop duster pilots aren't worried about it. But just
not worried about me.
When we fill out the paperwork for the approvals and all, we got to use the proper term. There's some federal money from our federal delegation. Cindy Hyde-Smith helped us out quite a bit, and the state legislature did too, to help us buy planes and keep things going at aviation. But we've also been for generations since our founding in 1924 the leading and most appropriate supplier of teachers, not just for the Delta, but all through Mississippi. And I tell you, our Delta State teachers are known around the state. They're sought after, and many stay in the Delta, as we're very happy for that, because our own schools need great teachers. But they're all out in Mississippi doing wonderful work, and we take great pride in our teaching program, because that's how we started. We were Delta State Teachers College back when they got things going. Our nursing program, we wrestle with the nursing shortage in Mississippi like every other university. And all of us at both the 2-year schools, the 4-year schools, and everybody else who has an investment in healthcare know that we have to continue to produce great nurses. And our nurses are top-notch. They score extraordinarily well in their nursing degrees and the examination, and they're out there not just in our hospitals, but all through the state as well. So we're really excited. I love to brag about our Delta Music Institute, because that's something no one else can have. It's impossible to anybody else but Delta State to have this conjunction of the great musical heritage of Mississippi, in particular the Delta. And what we do there is, of course, we preserve and celebrate and uplift those extraordinary musicians that come out of our part of the Magnolia State. But also we train students in professional music development and engineering and recording, and some of the skills that you all use here in the radio station. Those are skills that are still in demand, especially in this digital world, with podcasting, with apps like the ones y'all use at SuperTalk, outdoor music festivals. Our folks learn about outdoor sound engineering. So the Delta Music Institute is a great fusion of business and practical, pragmatic skills, and the ability to make sure that we always celebrate the extraordinary musical culture that we live with up there in the Delta.
And our broadcasting brother, Steve Azar.
Steve Azar
is a graduate from there, but also has his hands deep in then all that you do at Delta State, Dr. Ennis. And I think you're the only university that has a swim team also, too, correct?
Well,
or in the state, I think.
Well, we've got an extraordinary swim program, I'll say that. And we sent, Delta State's a small school. It's under 3,000 students, but like that fighting okra with his fists up, we really punch above our weight class. And one of the ways that we excel at the national level is in swimming. And with the collegiate swimming, there's not 18 different divisions and things like that. When our students go up to national championships in swimming, they're swimming against the biggest schools in the country, and they place every year. We have folks placing in the top 10, top 5, and some of them have won national championships. So when they go up there and they're representing Delta State, they're not in some sort of small group. They're up there at the national championships winning, and we take great pride in that. And for our swim team too, that's a great way for us to enrich our student body. We have students from all over the world who want to swim right there in Cleveland, Mississippi.
I was going to say, I grew up a swimmer, Dr. Ennis, and some of my good friends chose to or got able to go and swim for Delta State, but there's not a swimmer in Mississippi that's not, at least in terms of club swim or all year, that doesn't think about going to Delta State or knowing that that's an option in state, or has spent weekends in Cleveland competing in swimming.
Yeah, so many tournaments pass through our natatorium, and it's wonderful for us to see young, talented swimmers come through. Some come to Delta State, some go on to other programs, but we're glad that they had a stop at the wonderful wonderful facility we have there up in Cleveland.
So for students who may be thinking about, gosh, graduation's right around the corner, they probably have already thought about it, but think about juniors going into their senior years. Do y'all offer all 4-year programs, 2-year programs, online options? What are those kind of options there at Delta State?
So we're a 4-year university, so we're talking about bachelor's programs for undergraduates, and of course we do have online programs as well. And you're right, it's really juniors at this point. We of course will accept applications right up to the first day classes, and happy to talk to seniors who are still not there yet. But I just did a tour with our admissions group up it's kind of northwest Mississippi, and we did 9 high schools in about 3 days, and almost all the audiences we talked to were juniors. So parents out there, now's a good time for juniors to start thinking about next year because those college applications come up in the fall. You got to knock out that ACT and start making some college visits if you can. So for us, what we want to make sure people know is, we're a community. We're part of a town and a community that's really close-knit, and you can't get lost at Delta State.
You can't get lost at Delta State, and you're also, that community is such an important part, and you guys have really combined with a local community grade school for a good thing. We've got that and more with Dr. Ennis coming up next. Radio station, and don't forget, you can watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to Super Talk TV. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Ennis. He is the Delta State president, but joining us is also Dr. Lisa Bramucci. I got him. Get it right, Dr. Lisa. She's a superintendent of the Cleveland School District that went through a terrible time, and Delta State has opened its doors to house the Hayes Cooper Elementary students for some time. So welcome, Dr. Bramucci.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. We've kind of already caught up with Dr. Ennis. I know this conversation kind of starts with a unfortunate day in y'all's department. So sort of tell us what set the stage for the elementary students to need another home for a little while.
Yes, ma'am. We, of course, it's still under investigation, so the details have not been finalized, and it may take some time before we figure out exactly what happened. But there was some type of fire, and the term explosion has kind of been used a lot on social media, that happened in a classroom that affected another classroom, and our students had to be evacuated from the building, which we safely did in 18 seconds. Luckily, it was 7:25 in the morning of April 11th, so some of the bus students had not arrived, and students were not in that classroom, so we were very blessed that morning. It could have been a whole lot worse.
And you can imagine as a parent or just as a staff that time, if everything changes, right, sort of in an instant. You go into your fix-it mode and you try to get the kids safe and out. And then, when the dust settles, so to speak, you have to figure out how do we move on in a normal way. How are y'all thinking about that? How are y'all thinking about getting the kids back to a normal rhythm?
Well, right now we're planning for the rest of the year to be at Delta State because until all of the investigative part has been completed, we cannot occupy that building. So now we're beginning to make plans for the summer and to see where we go from here.
So, Dr.
Luckily, Dr. Ennis has been our friend from the beginning of the year when we had some air conditioner issues. He allowed us to have classes while they were putting new units in, and we've had a great partnership with them this year, and we are very lucky to have Delta State right here in our hometown.
So, Dr. Ennis, when did you get word about what happened at Hayes Cooper Elementary?
Well, I was like almost everyone else. I saw it on social media, and of course, I didn't see the official report. I just saw parents on social media saying something's going on at Hayes Cooper. Luckily, my team, I think, had some contact with the district and had some students there. A lot of our faculty and staff have students at that school. So I got the fill in, and I was texting with my team, and I just reached out to my good friend and superintendent and said, I know you're busy, but if we can help, let us know. And that sort of didn't want to be in their middle of their crisis, but just wanted to let them know that we were there to be of assistance when we could be helpful.
And Dr. Bramucci, when you think about like Delta State, or you're thinking about just being back into the community, I mean, this is exactly like what you think of. It's coming full circle. It's everyone sort of helping everybody in that time, and kind of next came with logistics. What were parents thinking about when y'all said we're shipping your kids to college, or we're skipping middle school and high school, and they're going to go ahead and start at Delta State?
I think there's been a lot of excitement. When the students got off the bus the first day and the football team was there to greet them, and the Statesman and the Okra, it's just been a phenomenal reception and a great way to get back to school. They have counseling services at Delta State that our students are afforded, and we, of course, have our own counselors. But, everything full circle has been, just been a blessing.
So where are they at, Dr. Ennis? Where are they at on campus?
So we were very lucky that when we got word that this might be something that needed to be done, I had my staff. We were texting all through the days and the weekends, looking at moving some folks. So we've got most of them in what would be appropriately our education building. We have a terrific College of Education that trains teachers K through 12. And so that seemed like the best place because our student interns know that building well. And it's already got some of the accoutrements and things you'd want in a school. It doesn't have everything, but, we have some lab classes in there. So, our Ewing building became the main HQ. We do have some students over in our science building as well, but we tried to keep them. We couldn't get them all into one building. We tried to keep them on one corner of campus where they can have mutual support for each other.
You went the extra mile by having the football team and everyone sort of come out. How were they excited to welcome the little ones on? I mean, I just can't. I have an elementary, a sixth grader. She went a middle schooler, but it's a sixth grader. She would just find that awesome.
Well, I want to give credit to our athletic director Mike Kinnison and head football coach Todd Cooley because I just was texting our whole cabinet over the period of time as the transition, trying to figure everything out from logistics to custodian to security to any repairs that need to be done. And on that text list was our athletic director, and so they thought it'd be lovely to have the football players come out, and was talking to the players before the buses pulled up, and just reminded them that to these young kids, these are superheroes.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of these, they're not all huge, but they're big, strong, athletic guys. They're all wearing their game day jerseys, so they're wearing the green and white. And I just thought that as the kids were coming out of their cars and out of their buses, to just sort of feel protected in a good way, to say, look, all these people are here for you. In some way, we're hoping to make sure they felt safe, and nothing safer than having 4 big linemen walk you into class. And I noticed earlier you were talking about it being a high five week.
It is. It's high five day.
Remarkable to see some of these little pre-K and kindergarten kids reach up and high five one of our wonderful student athletes. So that was a highlight of what was a pretty exciting day for everybody.
Dr. Bermucci, are you ready for them not to want to come back to school?
I think it would be great. A great partnership if we could come up with that, and I don't think anybody would be against it.
Yeah, well, do we hope or we see in the future that maybe we will transition back to the elementary school, that things will get fixed and repaired and sort of figured out? I know it's an ongoing story, but does it all look that way in terms of the next school year?
I can't answer that at this time until the investigation is complete. I wish I knew.
That's okay. That's cool. And if yes, and then but the beauty of this story is when a community was in need, then the college that was there was able to step up and open and afford the parents and the students the opportunity to continue their school year in a really unique fashion. So I think this is a really great story. And Dr. Bermucci, I appreciate your time to come on and share from the perspective of Hayes Cooper Elementary, and wishing everyone health, happiness, and figuring it all out.
Thank you, and I'd like to do a shout-out to my 2 teachers that are in the Baptist Hospital, that we hope they continue to get well and get home to us soon.
Absolutely, yes. And Dr. Enos, this is just one of many ways I'm sure Delta State has sort of woven their way back into the community. Do you feel like because it is and when I say smaller, it just means smaller, and that it's able to do that? Sometimes you get too big that you lose sight of the community around you. It does feel like Delta State's really nestled well into the community, like the lines are very blurred.
Yeah, one of my earliest meetings when I got to Cleveland is, the superintendent and I had lunch, and we talked about how we were in the same business, and we were in basically the K through 20 business, that we're responsible for kids in our region from the time they start school till they start their careers, and she's been an enormous part of helping me understand the community, and she's a great leader of the school district, and her teachers are remarkable. But in the larger sense, this is what a public regional can do. We're nimble. I mean, we didn't have a ton of bureaucracy or formality. We could scramble. I mean, it was remarkable to see the students stepped up. I want to make sure they get a shout out. They were doing volunteers, and our student government president, Haley Rooks, directed student volunteers over that were able to help move furniture and do everything. Our public safety work with the Cleveland City of Cleveland stepped up and helped us with some traffic control and other things. So it really was, I'm glad Delta State was part of it, but it was all hands on deck. The parents stepped in. We've had other schools step up and help out with materials and lunch, and I think one of the schools sent breakfast over the other day. So it's just been really heartwarming to see everybody who could help grabbed the rope and started pulling.
And I forgot to ask Dr. Mucci, how many students is it? Because it's not a class. It's not like 30 students that is coming. Dr. Enos, how many are y'all housing at Delta State?
327 kids. So
yeah, so
it's remarkable.
It's remarkable. And someone mentioned, I'm so moved and proud of DSU, and they're reaching out to the Cleveland school community on our text line. And I think that everyone listening sort of feels that way. You did say one thing about in terms of feeling safe. And so if parents are listening and maybe they have been reluctant of sending their kids to a big 4-year university, and they hadn't, and I hate to say the words, not forgot, but didn't think about Delta State. What do you say to bringing them to campus, letting them look around, that maybe a little bit smaller, nimble in the way you mentioned it, university would be a good way to go?
Well, I mean, thank you for that. I tell you what, there are all kinds of students in America and in Mississippi, and there's all kinds of colleges. I had 2 daughters. One went to a big school, 20,000 students, and loved it. Another one needed a different experience and went to a smaller school. I think there's families like that too. So for students who are looking for a supportive environment, teacher-oriented, student-oriented, and where you're not a number and your professor's going to know who you are and what you're about and where your strengths and weaknesses are, a smaller school like Delta State is often the best choice for your future.
All righty. Well, I appreciate your time. Hopefully it's first of many. You stop back and say hi here and good things. You're always welcomed. You guys stick with us. We got more for you coming up next.